September 7th, 1940. Dusk settled over the Thames. Then, the first sirens began to wail. London looked up. High above the river, the Silver Swarm was coming. German bombers, 348 of them, crossed the channel in waves. Their engines beat like distant thunder. For weeks, Britain had waited for this night. Radar stations along the coast had tracked the formations. But now, the map was no longer lines and numbers. It was London itself, the docks, the rail yards, the homes. The Luftwaffe called it Operation Loge, the first full-scale assault on the capital. At 4:43 p.m., the East End vanished in smoke. Warehouses, oil tanks, and row houses became one fire. According to reports from the Imperial War Museum, flames rose 200 feet high. The heat cracked the asphalt along the river. Firefighters worked until their hoses melted. Inside the underground, thousands huddled on platforms. Mothers wrapped infants in blankets torn from curtains. Old men held their hats as if to keep order in the dark. Children counted seconds between explosions, each one a small eternity. Above ground, the city's defenders stood powerless. Anti-aircraft guns barked across Hyde Park, tracing white arcs against the night sky. Searchlights crisscrossed the smoke, and somewhere beyond it, the bomb doors opened again. "Docklands hit. Fire's spreading," came the radio call. But in the control room, no one moved to leave. They knew this was only the beginning. The government had warned that London might be abandoned, but Londoners didn't move. They took their tea underground, shared newspapers by candlelight, and began to call themselves the Stirrup Pump Army. Every street became a fire post, every windowless room a shelter. When the all clear finally sounded at dawn, thousands emerged, covered in ash, blinking into the morning light. One survivor wrote in his diary that day, "I looked up the street and saw nothing left standing, but the milkman was there, brushing the dust off his cart." That was the first discovery of the Blitz. That endurance was not absence of fear, but defiance through routine. The bombs would fall for 57 nights. Factories, churches, schools, everything burned. Yet the people stayed, not by command, but by choice. As dawn rose over a city still smoking, a strange calm settled in the air. Even the pigeons seemed to circle slower, as if keeping watch over what had survived. The newspapers that morning ran one headline: "London can take it. They could, and they would." Night fell again over London. The smell of smoke still clung to the air. And once more, the sirens began. By mid-September, the people had learned the rhythm of war, the wail of the alarm, the pause before impact, the distant hum that meant another city block would vanish. But this time, they did not scatter. They descended. More than 150,000 Londoners made their way underground, through the tiled tunnels of the Northern Line, past the wooden benches of Aldwych and Piccadilly. The city's veins became its lungs. Children slept on suitcases. Families marked their corners with chalk. One woman pinned a small Union Jack to the wall beside her cot. She said it reminded her, "We're still above ground somewhere." Records from the London Transport Museum show how each station became its own small village. Volunteer nurses patrolled the platforms. Boy Scouts delivered tea from canteens. An orchestra played soft tunes to drown out the bombs. The air was damp, heavy with coal dust and perfume. Yet there was laughter, card games, a child's birthday candle flickering in the dark. Humanity, refusing to extinguish itself. Up above, the city groaned under another bombardment. St. Paul's Cathedral was struck, but not destroyed. Its great dome stood through the flames, a pale shape against a red sky. Photographs from that night, preserved by the Imperial War Museum, show firefighters silhouetted in the glow, their faces lit like ghosts. Winston Churchill visited one of the shelters soon after. He moved silently among the sleeping families. Later he wrote, "These were the people of London. They did not run. They endured the enemy's fury with a quiet, stubborn heart." That was the second discovery of the Blitz, that courage could live without noise, No banners, no speeches, only the simple will to stay where one belongs. Strategically, the Luftwaffe's plan was unraveling. Hitler had hoped to break morale, to shatter the will that fueled British resistance. But every raid seemed to harden it instead. The British government's intelligence reports from late 1940 described the phenomenon as a reversal of psychological expectation. Instead of panic, unity. Instead of despair, routine. Even funerals became communal acts of defiance. A survivor later recalled, "We buried our dead in daylight so the bombers could see us and know they'd failed." Above ground, the smoke rose. Below it, London breathed. And in that breathing, the war's balance began to shift, not on the front lines, but in the spirit of a people who would not yield. December 29th, 1940. A cold Sunday night between Christmas and New Year. The moon hung pale above the Thames. Then, a whistle and the city caught fire again. It began at 6:15 p.m. Over 130 German bombers flew low across London. Their payloads were not high explosives this time, but tens of thousands of incendiary bombs, small magnesium canisters that ignited on impact. Each one burned at 2,500 degrees, each one capable of turning a library into light. They fell over the heart of London, Cheapside, Paternoster Row, the Guildhall. Within minutes, the city of London became a single wall of flame nearly 2 miles wide. Firefighters called it the Second Great Fire of London. Water mains burst from the heat. The pumps ran dry. Only the tide of the Thames could help. According to reports preserved at the National Fire Service Archive, more than 100 separate fires raged that night. 1 in every 5 buildings in the ancient city was destroyed. Smoke blotted out the stars. And yet, through the inferno, St. Paul's Cathedral still stood, engulfed in smoke, ringed by fire, but unbroken. A photographer named Herbert Mason captured it from a rooftop at 2 a.m. The image ran the next morning in the Daily Mail. "War's greatest picture," the caption read. To millions, it was more than a photograph. It was a promise. Inside the cathedral, volunteers formed a fire watch unit. Clergymen and soldiers stood side by side with buckets of sand. One diary entry reads, "We would not let it fall, not tonight, not ever." That night revealed another discovery, not tactical, not even strategic, human. That spirit itself could resist destruction, when nothing else could. Churchill later said of that image, "Amid the ruins of our city, we see our faith still standing." The Luftwaffe believed such nights would finally break London, but in truth, it broke their own illusion of control. Morale, once a target, had become a weapon. The British government's Ministry of Information recorded a 92% compliance rate for civil defense duties, higher than before the bombing began. It was as if the fire had forged a new kind of armor, one not of steel, but of spirit. Morning came quietly. Ash fell like snow across Fleet Street. Men swept the steps of their ruined shops. Women queued for bread beside cratered pavements. The bells of St. Paul's rang through the smoke. London was still alive, and in that sound, the world heard something greater than survival. It was resolve. By early 1941, the Blitz had entered its long, relentless phase. 57 nights had already scarred the city, yet each dusk, when the sirens began, London simply adapted. Shops closed before sunset, blackout curtains sealed every window, fire watchers took their posts on rooftops. And the people carried on as if this rhythm were life itself. Every night was both ordinary and extraordinary. Trains still ran beneath the fire, letters were still posted before dawn, and in the tunnels, thousands lay down to sleep, the steel rails humming faintly from above. A civil defense report from February 1941 noted, "Londoners exhibit a curious form of habituation, fear replaced by acceptance, acceptance replaced by pride." It was no longer about endurance. It was identity. Each neighborhood formed its own watch teams. Men and women patrolled the ruins with stirrup pumps, filling sandbags where walls had been. Children gathered shrapnel as souvenirs. Every scar became proof that they were still here. The government distributed pamphlets on shelter etiquette, how to share limited space, how to hang makeshift hammocks from the railings, and most importantly, how to keep calm when the tunnels shook. Inside the underground, order ruled the chaos. Volunteer nurses walked to the aisles by candlelight. Priests whispered prayers over the noise. Some stations even had libraries. Small shelves of worn novels passed from hand to hand. There was laughter, too. An old man joked that, "We've paid rent up there, but we live down here." Even the bomb blasts had a rhythm now. A thud, a breath, then another, each one marking time like a clock without mercy. Above ground, the city glowed faintly red. Observers on the Thames described a tide of embers floating across the water towards Southwark. In the control rooms, fire chiefs read the same grim reports, but their tone had changed. They no longer spoke of holding out. They spoke of rebuilding. That was the fourth discovery of the Blitz. That continuity itself could be a weapon. The Luftwaffe, frustrated by British resolve, shifted its targets to industrial cities, Coventry, Liverpool, Birmingham. But London's spirit had already done its work. Morale across Britain began to rise, not fall. American journalists visiting the capital wrote of a city that greets destruction with manners. One report for Life magazine described an old woman serving tea to firemen beside a burning warehouse. She told them simply, "If they want to frighten us, they'll have to do better than this." The raids would continue through May 1941. Then suddenly, they stopped. The German air fleets were recalled eastward, toward a new front, a new madness. The invasion of Russia. Londoners looked up one night and found the sky empty for the first time in months. No hum of engines, no trembling glass, only silence. It was then they realized something profound, that the silence itself felt foreign. Peace, after so much endurance, was almost hard to believe. May 11th, 1941, the last great raid of the Blitz. Over 500 bombers crossed the Channel that night. By dawn, London's skyline was a silhouette of smoke, but when the fires died, the city did not. It breathed, slower, scarred, but unbroken. More than 40,000 civilians had been killed, 1 million homes destroyed or damaged. And yet, as the Imperial War Museum records show, essential services resumed within hours. The buses ran. Mail was delivered, and the markets reopened beneath bomb-blackened arches. The people had turned survival into a ritual. Every act of normal life was now a quiet rebellion. Churchill called it the finest hour of ordinary men. But those who lived it said little of heroism. To them, it was simply what had to be done. A letter found in the rubble of Stepney reads, "Tell them we didn't leave. Tell them London stayed standing." That was the final discovery of the Blitz, that the strength of a nation could be measured not by its weapons, but by the endurance of its people. Strategically, the raids had failed. The Luftwaffe never broke Britain's will. Factories kept producing. Fighter command remained intact. And when the bombers turned east toward Moscow, Britain still stood, a single, defiant island of light in a darkened continent. Yet the deeper victory was invisible. It lived in memory, in the way the city learned to breathe through fear, to work, to laugh, to love, beneath the falling sky. Post-war surveys by the Ministry of Information showed something remarkable. Civic trust and neighborly cooperation rose to their highest levels during the bombing itself. In the heart of catastrophe, Londoners found community. An eyewitness wrote, "When the sirens sounded, we were all the same, clerk or cleaner, rich or poor. The bombs did not ask our names." When victory finally came in 1945, many who had survived the Blitz spoke of those years not only with pain, but with a strange affection, for the closeness, for the unity, for the sense that courage, once found, never truly left them. As dawn returned to the Thames, the light revealed more than ruins. It revealed what the bombs could not touch, the human core of a city that refused to kneel. And in that morning stillness, the meaning of the Blitz became clear. They had not endured for glory. They had endured for each other. For those who came after, it became a quiet truth of civilization itself. They fought not to be remembered, but so others could forget the fear,